All right, welcome back everyone. In today's video, we're going to be continuing our state machine for a boss system. So I'll show you guys what we're going to have real quick. So our golem now follows the player. It kind of chases after him. Now there's another state, which is the shoot state. It doesn't actually shoot anything. We're not going to do that. That's a projectile. And hopefully you guys can do that on your own time. If we leave the range, it'll follow us again and then shoot. And if I come close enough, he will start to attack melee wise. But if I leave, he will chase and then shoot, and etc. So we'll go through how to go through those different states and how to kind of transition, all that different stuff. So another thing I did off video, which I'm not going to do because it takes a bit of time, I just added in the bunch of animations through the animation player. Hopefully you already know how to do that from last video. We did idle and run together, I believe, and I've just done the rest on my own. So we have death, we have idle, melee attack. So if I go through the animation, he's just shooting melee. Run is the second. It doesn't really look like he's running, but he's just kind of hovering the thing. Shield is going to be shield, so it'll kind of shield up. And then we have shoot, which I think we added last video anyways. And lastly, we have 3 new area 2Ds. So I'll go through how to add one. So first we add a node, area 2D, and then we add a collision shape, and we just give it the shape of a circle. And then you're going to do that 3 times. You're going to name them the same as me, or not. It depends on what you want to do. But first, we are going to have 3 different area detectors essentially. The first one is going to detect if the player enters the area. Maybe you don't want that. That's okay. Maybe you want the boss to just chase after the player no matter what. That's okay. That doesn't matter. We can kind of go through how to do that. The next detector is going to be the shoot, this layer, the second one, is going to be, okay, well, the player has now entered my shoot range. I'm going to start shooting at him, right? I'm going to shoot far away. The melee detector is going to be, okay, I want to start shooting I want to just hit melee, okay? And that's close enough so that he's more melee, right? Okay, so let's get right into how to do that. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to change a few things, and we're going to add a few things. So the shoot state, we're going to actually change that to attack state. So to do that, we actually have to go into here and change that. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to copy my new states, and we're going to add all these. So we now have an attack state, which we've changed. We're going to have a chase state, and we're going to have a defense state. Attack is going to hold all the attacks. Oh, sorry, that's chase. Attack is going to hold all the attacks, melee, shoot, etc. And we'll go through how to kind of do that later. But now we're going to have to add the rest. So idle, let's duplicate that. Go to idle, and we will do, let's see, we have defense state. We'll duplicate it again, delete the defense, and add chase. And now we have to go into each one of those and change the class name. So this one is the chase, so we'll do chase state. In the, I have to open it. In the defense one, same thing. We do defense. I have to make sure I did it right, spelt it right. Hopefully these should unerror. Now we have to do the attack. So we have to go to the, where is it? Attack state, and change shoot state to shoot, or just attack. Okay, next thing we're gonna do in our golem, I'm gonna drag this to the top. Okay, so our state factory actually should be done, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. So let's close that. The state, we don't have to change anything. This is fine. Close that. Okay, now we're going to change a few things in the golem itself. So in the golem, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete these. We don't need these anymore. Let me just double check where, instead of calling the idle function, we're just going to change state to idle. And there's a reason we're going to do that. So let's change state to idle, and now we can delete these. And we are going to delete, I think, all of that. Let me double check. Process. I think, yeah, you know what? We just delete the entire process function. We no longer need it because that was just for testing out our states. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to connect all our detectors. So let's just do that real quick. So let's add body entered, connect, body exited, connect. So we have body entered, body exit. We have melee. We'll do body entered for that. Keep in mind, you can do area entered, but that means now the player has to also have an area 2D, which mine doesn't. So let's just do body because our player is a body. It is a kinematic body, I believe. Or no, character body. They changed it. Okay, so now we've connected all of them. I'm just going to copy the new variables that we need. There's going to be 3 of them. So I'm going to have a chase, a variable. They're all going to be booleans. So true or false. Chase is going to be true or false, which is false at the moment. Melee is going to be false because we're not in melee range yet. Shoot is also going to be false because we're not in melee range yet. And so now in here, we're going to say a bunch of things that are going to allow us to know whether or not we're in melee range, we're in chase state, we're in melee, etc. Right? So the first thing we're going to have to do in each one of these is check if it's a player. So if body.name is equal to player, which it should be, so capitalization also matters, keep in mind. Then we will say chase is true, and then change the state to chase. So we're going to change it to chase. Next, if our guy exits the body, the player detector, right, because this is the max range, the final range, then we're just going to go back into idle. We're going to change into idle state, right? And we're going to say chase is equal to false. Other than that, these don't matter yet. Ooh, we're missing one. Melee. Ooh, we are missing one. We're missing melee exit. Let me add this here, though. There we go. Okay. So now let's do our shoot one. So if we enter our shoot, what do we want to do? We want to say, where is it? We're going to say shoot is true, but we're also going to say melee is false, because let's say we went from melee to shoot. We now want to say, okay, melee is now false, right? So we always want to make sure that we're setting both of these two in any of these functions. And let's continue. So we now have the shoot body exited. If we exit the shoot, that means we're now going to chase the player again, right? So we're going to make both of these false, and we're going to chase the player, right? So we're going to change the state to chase. Okay, let's do the other ones. Hopefully they're kind of self-explanatory. So if we exit the melee, we're just going to say melee is false and shoot is true. And if we enter the melee, you guessed it, melee is true and shoot is false. Okay, so now that we have all that done, let's now figure out how are we going to, okay, now that we've changed states, what are we going to do in those states? Let's figure that out. There's one other thing I want to add. We're actually not going to do this, or we're not going to make use of it, but there is a good way to kind of have an exit function. Sometimes you might ask, okay, well, how do I do something like this? Exiting idle state. How can I ask this state if we're exiting the state? How can I do something before the state ends? Because sometimes I'll want to do something like that. We won't do that, but this is a good like idea, kind of. So the reason, or the way we can do this is we actually have to now add this into every function, just as ready function is a thing. This is when the state or the state comes in, right? Because we've created it. Now, exit is not a built-in function, but we can kind of build it, right? By going into our golem, and in here, when we queue free, before we queue free, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just call that function, the exit function? Now, however, this is an issue because now we have to add the function exit to each of these states, which isn't too big of an issue. So it depends on what you want to do. So let me just add that to all of them real quick. Let's add the exit to the chase and attack. We're going to do the same thing. So attack, exit, attack state. So now we can exit or do something every time we exit. So I just printed something, so we're not going to actually do anything, but we're just going to print something, just so you kind of understand the idea behind that. Okay. The first state we're going to do is a chase, because how do we chase the player, right? That's the question. So in our chase state, we're going to do a function called run. We no longer need idle because we don't have that. And because we're not calling run in our golem, we're going to have to call it in our ready function. So we're going to just say run, and we're going to play run. Okay. And now in our process function, I'm actually going to change this to a physics process, because we're now moving, chasing the player. I'm just going to copy the code and explain it as we go. It's pretty self-explanatory, or not self-explanatory. It's just code that chases the player essentially. Speed is not defined. We have to define that. So we also have our variable speed. So this is our speed of the golem. And one thing that kind of is a bit weird about this is the, let me actually see if I can run this. Okay, cool. So if we go to the main, if we go to our golem, the reason why we can get our golem by getting parent is because our current state is always going to be a child of that golem, right? So in order to access the golem script, anything in here, so like chase, melee, etc., anything, even velocity, whatever, where did it go? We can now just say get parent because it'll always be the parent on top. So we can now ask, okay, we got the golem. Can we ask the chase? Is chase true? If chase is true, then we're gonna get the player position, the player direction, right? Because we can get the player right here. So we're gonna first, you can also check if that player exists by saying, oh, I'm not gonna do it. Hopefully you know how to do that. It's just has node. If has node player, then do this so you don't error. But we already assume that it's there. So we're gonna get the player, we're gonna get the position minus the golem's position, and we're gonna normalize it so we get that direction. So once we get that direction, we're just gonna say, okay, if it's on the right, no, if it's not, yeah, if it's on the right side, then we're gonna flip, or we're not gonna flip. If it's on the left, then we're gonna flip the character sheet. So that way he flips depending on the direction of the player. And then we're just gonna take the golem's velocity, and we're gonna make it equal to the direction dot x times speed, because this is a platformer, so we don't care about the y. Well, we care about the y, but we only wanna get the velocity x to look at the direction x, if that makes sense. And now in here, so this is to chase. You might be asking, well, what about move and slide? Well, we don't have to do that actually, because in our golem, if you remember, we added move and slide in here. So we have a fixed process. This is the gravity, right? So, and we have a move and slide in here. So we don't have to do that in here. You can, I don't think it'll error, but you don't have to. And now this is to change from chase to shoot. So if we're chasing, so we have chase is true, and because we've added all those detectors, we're gonna eventually, hopefully, be able to shoot the player. So now we're gonna be constantly checking if shoot is true. If shoot is true, then we're gonna change the state to attack. And the reason why I'm making the velocity 0 is because we want, well, it depends on how you want to make your boss, but I want my boss to stand still when he's in attack state, right? So you can do this here, or you can do it in ready. It depends on how you want to do it. You can also test around, see what works, what doesn't. But now we should be able to chase the player. So let's try that. So let's go in here, and he now chases us. Eventually, hopefully, he will change to attack state, but we don't have anything in attack state yet. So let's go to our attack state and see what's in here. So as you can see in the printed though, we've exited the idle state because it started chasing. And then because we entered the attack state, we're gonna exit the chase state, and we've entered the attack state, right? Okay, so let's take a look at what are we gonna do in here. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is, okay, this one's gonna be a bit more complicated, but we're gonna add, we already have the shoot function. We're going to add a few things. This is a concept, not concept. We're going to connect this a signal from our animation player to our attack state. And this is a bit weird because one, we can't do this manually. We can't go in here and connect it because it doesn't exist. We can only add it in the code. And so how do we do that? Well, through my massive brain, I have found 2 different ways to do it. There's actually a few different ways, but I've tested out how to do it properly, so we don't debug this together. I'll show you both ways. So let me just copy these. So this is to get the animation player. So if our node was here, how can I connect here? So we go up to the parent, and then we go down to the animation player, right? So that's how we get the node. And in here, there's 2 different ways. I'll just uncomment that so you can see it. So animation connect, we're gonna connect the animation finished, right? So the animation finished right here. If you hover it, it'll say animation finished. That's the signal. I can't hover the signal, but it's like, yeah, I can't point at it. Hopefully you see it. And we're gonna connect it to this function, the on animation finished, which I'll copy in a second. But it's just this thing, animation finished, animation string, and that's it. That's one way to do it. Or you can also do on animation finished, or animation, the node. We're going to say on animation finished, right? The same function that's called the signal. We're going to connect it on a call on the self, which is this node, self node, on this function. So there's two different ways to do it, and they both work. I've tested them. And next up, we're going to add that function. So I'm just going to copy this. So we now have our on animated finish. After that, what do we want to do? There's a few different things we want to do. So first we want to check which animation did we just finish. So the way we can do that is the function passes through animation name. So we can just check what is the animation name, right? And we want to check for two different things. We want to see if it's either shoot or melee attack. If either of those two animations finish, then we're going to do something, right? So what do we want to do? Well, there's two different scenarios. Either we're still in shoot range. So let me just, either we're still in shoot range and we want to keep shooting. So we're going to shoot. We're going to continue shooting. Or elif, or we are now in melee range. If we've finished our shoot range or our shoot attack and we are now in melee range, then I'm going to start playing melee attack, right? Otherwise, we do nothing. I added a print state, but I'm not going to add that. The reason why we do or here as well is because we want this to trigger no matter which attack it is. So either we can go from melee to shoot or shoot to melee, if that makes sense. So we can hover between those two attack states, essentially. They're not attack states, but they're all in the same state, right? So this is a decent way to kind of have a bunch of different attacks in one state. You can also extend this further and have a bunch of other states or attack states in this attack state, but I'm not going to do that. That's a bit more complex. Next up, I'm just going to go to the defense and I'm going to copy the code here. So we're just going to play defense on ready and exit defense. We're not actually going to implement defense. I want you to figure out your own way and your own style of how to do that, of what you want to do as a trigger to go to defense state. So maybe you want, okay, maybe if the golem's health drops by 10% right away, then we're going to do this. But I'm not even adding health to our golem, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, let's play and see what we got so far. So we now have, we enter chase state. Once it's close enough, it'll start shooting at me repeatedly, right? Because we are now checking every animation. Once it's finished, it'll start replaying that same animation because I'm still in the shoot. If I leave, it'll chase again. And what's nice is that it'll stop the animation and just start chasing, right? Because we are in a physics process state where we're always checking. So now if I'm melee, it'll start attacking me. After the animation finishes, it'll stop and then start shooting me and then chase and flip. And you can add, maybe you want it to flip when you're here. You can do that. I'm sure you can figure it out. You're very smart. I believe in you guys. What else do we have to do? Let's find out why it's not playing idle in the idle state. The idle, let me see. Let me copy this over. Okay, there. What did we have before? Ready? Okay, we were never playing the idle animation, that's why. Okay, so now we should be able to, he'll play idle, we go chase, shoot, and melee. There we go. Okay, and that's it for this video. It was kind of long. It took me a lot of effort to code this out, but hopefully you guys learned how to change different states and how to do things in those states. This, by the way, might not be the best way to do it. Some people might want to move inside the actual golem. You can have like a run function in here and just call the run function. It's up to you. But I just decided to do this because I want to show how to run inside of a certain state, even though it's a bit wanky. The speed you can also store inside of here. It has its own speed, but I didn't use it. You might as well just delete that. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so that's it. Hopefully you guys learned how to do a bunch of things. Hopefully you can now add your own states. Maybe you can implement the defense state on your own. Share the project with me. Maybe I can check it out. That'd be awesome. And yeah, I hope you guys can use this in your own platformers. That's it for today. As always, join my Discord down below. I have a Patreon if you want to. Follow me on YouTube, subscribe, comment, share, like. Definitely like the video and comment. Comments definitely help, so definitely comment down below what you guys would like to see next. I'm still working on the tower defense series, so if you're looking out for that, don't worry, it'll come out soon. And that's it. I will see you guys hopefully in the next few days. Bye-bye.